Um, got another video about something. Uh, as everybody knows, or should know, my subscribers has been bumming. I lost my son in 1986. And was talking to my daughter. We was talking about everything that led up to that. And I know what you're saying when I say this, but I blame myself for that happening because I made all the decisions that led up to that. And the girl that died with my son, she worked for me through a school project and she was getting grades on it and everything. We actually had to send in grades on her and everything about how she did and everything. Her name was Robin Campbell. And I even told her dad one time that I blame myself for both my son and her dying because I made all the decisions. The day before that happened, every Friday afternoon we was taking my daughter to a counselor. We was having some problems with her. And, but the day before that happened, a deputy sheriff pulled up in our driveway. And asked me was I the father of Russell Pearson III, which he was named after me, and I said, yeah, and he said, well, we need to talk to him, and he explained to me what it was about. Turns out, my son and this other boy named Mike Wade, they had been going on some private property that was across the street. It wasn't a house, it was a game preserve. And it was private, and it was owned by a big land developer in that area. And matter of fact, that preserve, Jimmy Carter, the president, Jimmy Carter, he used to go hunting over there on that preserve. But my son and this boy was going over there, and a lot of other kids did it too. It was a big preserve, and I don't know what the attraction was or anything like that. But they was going over on that preserve, trespassing. And somebody was vandalized. There was deer feeders all around on that property. It was hundreds, thousands of acres. And some deer feeders was getting vandalized. And to this day, I don't know if my son did it or Mike did it or some other kids did it. I don't know. But they was over there. And that's what the deputy wanted to talk to him about. So I went and got him. And rather than me stand there and listen to what all they was discussing, I said, you been over there on that property, you deal with this. And I sent him to the deputy. Deputy set him in the car, and he talked to him for about 30 minutes. And when he come back in, he was upset. I should have been there for him. I wasn't. I was mad. I was upset. And I said, well, Jenny's been giving us problems, now you're starting to give us problems. So I said, tomorrow when we go by and get Jennifer, we're going to go by and get you, and you're going to go to the counselor with her. And that was the way I look at it, that was the death knell. But I was supposed to go to the school and pick him up early and pick Jennifer up early. But I was tied up with something at the shop. We run into a problem or something, and I was trying to fix whatever it was, and I can't remember what it was. And my wife said, if you looked at the time, I looked at the time, it was time for me to go get Bud and Jennifer. And I said, might have to skip, I gotta get this done. I forget what it was I was working on, something in the shop. And Robin, she was there working that day. And her and Bud was involved romantically. I didn't know that at the time, even though he was 14 and she was 17. And she said, I hadn't had my lunch yet. I can take my lunch and go get him and get Jennifer. That was the second death knell. So I agreed to it. My last memory of seeing Robin alive was going out that door with a little bag of lunch and her little Honda car, turning around in the parking lot and heading out. And I hate to even say this, I can't even remember. The last living memory I have of my son was him sitting in that chair in the living room, crying. I don't have any living memory of him the next morning going to school or any of that. So Robin took off. He went to one school, my daughter went to the other school. She picked him up first. And crossing that major intersect 441 and was it 301, 441, I can't remember the other name of it. There's two highways running together. And that's where she pulled out in front of that Greyhound bus. He was going about 65. At that time, there was no traffic lights there. And when school was letting out, they always had this deputy sheriff out there with lights going and everything, directing traffic across that. It was a major intersection because you had the high school on one side and the middle school on the other. My son was in the middle school and Jennifer was in the high school. And the way I see it, if I hadn't have made the decision for him to go to that counselor, he'd have been on the school bus, and Jennifer would have been going to the counselor. Or if I realized I couldn't get away from work, that I said just cancel the appointment and let it go. Folks, I've been living with that for the last 35 years. Never forgot it. And I know what a lot of you are going to say, you know, well, it was their time, Russell, and all that stuff, and I don't buy into that thing, it's their time. When somebody dies, it's their time to die. I mean, actually, I guess when you die, it is your time because you're dying. What are you doing, buddy? But and Robin wasn't the careless driver. Well, what we've been told, and I don't know how they come up to that decision, that was a double lane coming down that highway, and the bus, there was a big semi-truck coming in the lane closest. Robin had pulled into the medium and was sitting there waiting for traffic to go by, and she was sitting there, and of course, all she had to do was make sure everything was clear to the right, because there was nothing coming on that left. She'd already crossed that part of the road. But what they're saying is the semi-truck was coming down the highway, and the bus was behind the truck in the other lane and blocked out of Robin's view. And as quick as that truck went by, she pulled out, not seeing that bus till it was too late. That's what the bus driver, the Greyhound bus driver, told the state trooper. And I can see how that could happen. But she's only 17. Now, I would have had the experience as long as I've drove that I would notice, make sure there's nothing on the other lane coming behind that truck. I mean, I just would. You know, I've been driving a lot of years. And the Greyhound driver, that zone there wasn't marked a school zone at the time either. They estimated he was going 65. and it was a 55 zone. But it wasn't marked school zone. There was no signal like that. And I remember the bus driver's name, Bobby Vining. And through all the paperwork and everything, I run across his name, Bobby Vining, his address, his phone number, and a couple other phone numbers. And I decided I was going to call him up. Not to chew him out or anything, because at that point Robin pulled out in front of him. It wasn't his fault, but he got fired. Greyhound fired him. And he was appealing that. Well, he got reinstated later on. But they fired him. And that was a bad decision, me deciding to call him. My son was 14. And God, it hurt so bad. I feel really, I didn't, when I called, I said, I want to talk to Bobby. And the person on the other end was female. And they said, he's not here right now. I assumed it was his wife. And I was going to tell him not to beat himself up over it, because I know he probably was having a lot of problems emotionally too. Because he was driving the bus that hit the car that killed 2 teenagers. But it wasn't his wife. It was his 14-year-old daughter. I didn't know, I identified myself to what I thought was his wife. I felt about that tall. She was crying. And saying he didn't mean it, he didn't, you know, and she was just upset. I should have never. But same age as my son. But yeah, I blame myself. If I hadn't made the decision for him to go to that counselor with me and Jennifer. When we was still working on whatever it was I was doing, I think it was a sewing machine down or something. My wife said that you looked at the time. I looked at the time, and then Robin wanted to go, and Robin's brother, he was 14, and him and my son were best friends. So for him, it was a double whammy. He lost his sister, and he lost his best friend. I mean, they did everything together. I know. I understand what people say. It's not your fault. Well, it is, but it isn't, you know. But that just upset me so bad when I realized I was talking to his 14-year-old daughter. And I had a couple of spells, you know, a couple of months after that I just lost it. I don't know what. I was just upset, and I was screaming that I killed my son, I killed my son, I killed Robin. It was so bad they called the paramedics to come out there, and they called somebody and got permission to give me a shot or something, and that calmed me down. But I had 2 or 3 times like that. I was just, and after that, there was a spell there that I acted perfectly normal, like nothing never happened and everything, and my daughter took that as I didn't care. That was a tumultuous time, you know. It just, what in the world gets me on this stuff? I don't. Oh well. I guess that's my story on this, and wish this was one I didn't have to stick to. Oh Lord. It is, holy crap, it's 1:30 a.m. I'll probably have to take some melatonin or something. I ain't gonna be able to go to sleep without it. Anyway, see you in the next video.